My name is Sheila Mackay, and I am a member of the Age Friendly Edmonton's Ageism Hub and the subcommittee which organized this panel discussion. Other members on the committee are Kathy Harvey, co-chair, Dorothy Lowry, co-chair, and Carolyn G., Age Friendly Edmonton's community connector at the Edmonton Seniors Coordinating Council. The event has been sponsored by Age Friendly Edmonton, which is a collaboration between the Edmonton Seniors Coordinating Council and the City of Edmonton. Age Friendly Edmonton is part of a global movement to bring age-friendly cities that are welcoming to all people of all ages. We want to honor those who came before us. We have this opportunity to learn and share knowledge together. We acknowledge the traditional land on which Edmonton sits, the territory of the Treaty 6 First Nations and the homelands of the Métis people. We would like to acknowledge and thank the diverse Indigenous people whose ancestors have occupied this territory for centuries. Together, we call upon all of our collective honored traditions to work and build in this great city of Edmonton for today and for future generations. Now, our panelists today are Dr. Sherry Dalkey, a professor at the University of Alberta in the Faculty of Medicine. Dr. Dalkey's program of research focuses on improving how practicing nurses and nursing students are educated to work with older people. Dr. Dalkey said one of the things the students said was that they didn't know how to relate to an older generation. Perhaps they didn't have grandparents or older people around them, so they didn't really know how to start a conversation. Our second panelist is Cheryl Chanong Grey Eyes, and she is from the Muskeg Lake Cree Nation. As a Cree Métis woman, she is generously sharing her learnings and teaching as she travels the red road of Indigenous spirituality. Cheryl is actively involved with Storytelling Alberta and tells stories of brave warriors, strong women, spirit guides, blessings, and cleansing winds. Our third panel is Eric Carrillo. He came to Canada from Mexico as a graduate student in the mid-1980s. A sociologist by training, he has taught and worked for professional associations as well as on international development projects in Asia and South America. In the last decade, Eric established a self-publishing venture which has produced books in Ontario and Alberta. Eric hopes to continue helping others to leave a written legacy of their life experiences. Now, our moderator for today is Michael Fair, a well-known Edmonton person. He is a former Edmonton City Councillor who continues to serve as a strong advocate for social justice issues, promoting efforts to reduce homelessness, building affordable housing, and advancing LGBTQ2S rights. Please welcome Michael Fair and our three panelists. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Sheila, for that kind introduction, as well as the introduction of our panelists. We will proceed in just a moment. We are the learning part. The rest of you who are watching are the lunching part. So we will have a series of questions. I expect that each of the panelists will have about 3 or 4 minutes to answer the questions, and we'll move from one panelist to another panelist through the 3 of them, and then we'll have another set of questions that we'll go through. And as we get to the end, we may have a chance to have a little bit more of a general discussion, but that's the format today. So the learners will begin. That's us. And so the first question that I wish to put is growing old involves many changes that happen to people. And I'm interested in your personal experience growing older. What 1 or 2 changes have been most notable to you? So what 1 or 2 changes have been most noticeable? And Sherry Dalkey, I think we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for the kind introduction. I just want to correct that I'm from the Faculty of Nursing, not medicine. Um, Two of the notable things that I've noticed as I've grown older is really feeling an increased responsibility to make the world better for younger people and for everyone else. Kind of maybe as you realize that your life is more finite than it was a few decades ago, feeling sort of an urgency to do that. And another change that I've noticed is optimism. I think I've always been an optimistic person, but I really feel like this is the best time of my life. And I have so much to look forward to. And it's kind of ironic that I probably have less years ahead of me than I do behind me. But I feel very excited about what's to come in the years to come.
Uh, Thank you for sharing. I'm interested to see whether we hear about optimism further on, because the times sometimes don't lead us in that direction. So let's move to Cheryl. And Cheryl, if you would like to talk about one or two things that you think are particularly significant for you.
Well, for myself, for me, two things are very easily identifiable. One, I have more time. Uh, Two, I have less money. So for me, those are quite significant in my choices that I'm making. Because I have more time, I get to do what I want to do and focus on what I want to do. And I do this by teaching and sharing Indigenous culture. I teach the medicine wheel teachings via Zoom. And I've actually gone into seniors' homes, and they're very receptive to learning this information that they haven't been exposed to. For me, I really like having my time, and I have to admit, I like the odd nap in the afternoon. It's for me to spend time with myself, and I'm grateful for that. As far as the money goes, limited income limits my ability to do things that I want to do. However, I'm also finding my needs are not near as high as they used to be when I was growing up. There is a thing called Swedish death cleaning, which is where you go to each decade and you hit 50s and you get rid of 20% or 25% of what you own. You hit 60s, 25%. So by the time you're in your 70s or 80s or 90s, you've got rid of a lot of stuff. And for me, it's very much about letting go. Things that used to be important to me just aren't anymore. So my priorities have shifted. And I'm grateful for more time, and I keep buying lotto tickets.
Good. Thank you very much. I must say the letting go is something that I've started in and look and think, I don't need this anymore. I'm not sure why I even kept it. So thank you for those thoughts as well. And so now I'd like to move to Eric. And Eric, if you want to perhaps give us a couple of areas that you think have made quite a significant difference for you as you've gotten older.
Um, I would like to say that aging or getting older didn't happen one day. I woke up and got out of bed, and then suddenly I got my senior's card. That didn't happen. It's been a process of learning, of opening my eyes, of suddenly realizing that I am not 30 years younger. And that process is full of reminders or markers that come from inside and from outside. And not only from inside and outside, but also for me. I was born in Mexico and spent 30 years in Mexico and came to Canada in my mid 30s. So to me, aging has a double path, aging as a Mexican and aging as a Canadian, which is completely different. And one of the changes that I am seeing is the changes in the roles that I play. Uh, some of those roles are external. Most of the time when I was in college, I was called Eric. And then that changed over the years to Dad when my children were small. And then now, even my children call me Lito, which is the Mexican shorthand for grandfather, grandpa. When they talk to their children, they don't say, go and talk to Eric or my dad. They say, go talk to your grandfather. And so it has changed. The labels that people put on me have changed. When I go to a restaurant and I say I'm a senior, then I get a discount. So it's a label that I sometimes use for my own advantage. But there's also an internal labeling where I can see myself that the labels that people put on me also have an impact inside of me, how I see myself. And there is a tension between being seen as an older person and the way I see myself in the mirror. Sometimes I'm singing Michael Jackson's The Man in the Mirror like I was 20, but I'm not. And that is that tension inside of me, the internal relabeling. Um, Definitely, I don't see myself as an old man. Uh, Another area of changes is the physical changes. Some days my body feels more like 69, which is my age. My knees refuse to bend easily on command. My back doesn't want to stretch the way it used to stretch. My legs don't go as fast as I would like them to go. So that, and sometimes my memory just refuses to remind me where did I leave my keys for the car. And so those physical changes remind me that, yeah, I'm not the same person. I'm getting older. But despite all of these internal and external changes, I have taken an attitude of being an agent of my life, of what happens to me. I don't want to be a spectator in my life, and our culture pushes this role of spectators. I refuse that role. And instead of living passively and retire happily to a golf course, I keep involved as much as I can with my communities, with the people that matter to me the most. And one of the roles that I'm enjoying is being a mentor now to my family, to younger men, to people who lend me their ear for a minute. And one last thing that I wanted to say is that as I'm getting older, I'm finding that I pay less and less attention to public opinion and more to my core values. I don't,
Mhm.
in the vernacular, I don't care what people think about me or why I do things. I do it because I believe that's valuable.
Good.
Mhm.
Thank you, Eric. Certainly very, very thoughtful. Yeah, I find it interesting that you didn't wake up one day and you know that decided you were older. I had a nephew who I hadn't seen for a while who took one look and said, "Oh, you've gotten old." And it was like, oh, that was pretty definitive at that time. Kind of that. So interesting how those kinds of things happen. But thank you so much for what you've had to add as well. So I'll move to another question, and this is a question that asks you to reflect on your experience and can you think of 2 or 3 people who have been most influential in shaping your experience of growing older, and what impacts that had on how you see growing older? Some experiences from some other people and how they saw you getting older and what they had to say about it. And I think maybe Eric, I'll start with you this time and go the other direction.
All right. Uh, I can think right away of my parents, and they count as one. That's how they live their lives as a couple. They were married for 58 years, and they really became an entity, one entity, and they influenced me. My mother, I can think of her influence as telling me all the time, you have to learn to roll with the punches, which to me means be ready to reinvent your role as you get old. You can't be stuck in one role. And another thing that I remember dearly from my mother is that she always reminded me of finding out what I value the most and then value it in my life. Uh, Family, living with a thankful heart, uh, seeing life as a gift, everything in life as a gift. That comes from my mother. From my father, I have good genes. He lived to 95, and when he was 75, he looked like 55. So I got some good genes there. And the most important thing that he influenced me in getting older was very early in life, he told me happiness in life, and everybody seemed to be looking for happiness at the time. He said, happiness is finding your purpose. Marry that purpose and then have children with that purpose. And I never forgot when he told me that. I must have been 16, 17. He was very resilient. And I've learned resiliency as he got older. He kept doing what he believed he had to do. Time didn't stop him until he was 94, 95 and had some medical problems. But that resiliency is a very important legacy from my dad. And he never stopped living his purpose, even in his old age. Wonderful examples of for me on how to get old.
Good. Thank you for that. Very thoughtful. And so I think I'll ask Sherry to respond to the same question again.
Yes, it's interesting. When I think the first person that pops into my head is my grandfather. He was an immigrant from Norway, and he was a farmer and very, very physically fit. And he was always cheerful and optimistic about everything. And he certainly had adversity and hardships, but he maintained that positivity. He lived to be 3 months shy of 100. And throughout his life, he was very physically active. He had a weight when he retired from farming. He had an exercise bike and weights in the basement in the winter, and rode his bike and swept the sidewalks for all the old people who were likely younger than him. And so in very small ways, he was always trying to give back to other people. And he was just always cheerful. And so I always think about, when I think about aging, I think I want to channel my grandfather. Another person that's really important to me is my husband. He's older than I am. I haven't retired yet. He's been retired for 5 years, and I actually really am one of these people who love working. And I thought, how am I ever going to retire? What would a person do? And just to see how engaged he is with life. He's got always got some sort of project going on, but he does it at a pace, not that frantic pace that I have to work in right now. And he can enjoy his work and savor it. I mean, he's done a kitchen reno, added onto our house. He's done very major issues, and yet he still finds the time to golf and visit with his friends. And to me, I thought, I think I can do retirement, because it's not just sitting around, it's being active in doing the things that you want to do at a pace that you want to. So those are two people who there are other really important women that I work with. Because I work in academia, there are faculty that are in their 70s that are working, and I really admire them. They, they're very knowledgeable, and yet they see their role as trying to support younger faculty and students. And I hope that's what I'm doing as well. So I really like that idea of giving back in some way that you can from what you've learned.
Thank you. Very interesting. And so, Cheryl?
Thank you. For me, a big influence is my mother. My mother will be turning 91 on April the 6th. She just got her driver's license renewed. She had her eyes cataract surgery. Her vision's 20/20. It's better than mine. And she's always been an inspiration to me. She was a single parent of 5 kids. I was the eldest. She drove cab for 40 years when women didn't drive cabs. As a residential school survivor, she managed to bridge her time between being on reserve and visiting with her family and her career, whatever that would be at the time. She's very much an influence too, in that she continues to learn and to grow. She is a raving Catholic and quite proud of her religiosity. And she lives in Edmonton in the South Side. She has recently been reno-evicted, as all of a sudden the city's looking at her property with dollar signs in their eyes. But she was invited to pick out her own uh, uh, living environment by the same people who reno-evicted her. So she's got a new one bedroom that she'll be moving into in the next month. And she drives, and she's a very good driver. According to her, there's, the bad drivers are maniacs and idiots. The idiots go too slow and the maniacs go too fast. But she's a very good driver and a very safe and defensive driver. And I enjoy driving, so this is something that we share. And she's driven all across Canada. She has no fear of getting behind the wheel. And I think for me, feisty is a good way to describe my mom. She is one tough cookie. And same thing, she has softened in a lot of her attitudes. So again, it's a gift to know that you can change and grow. And as long as you're breathing, you're growing. Another person who influenced me was a Cree elder by the name of Olive Menetopius. She too was a residential school survivor, but she never lost her language. And my mother also speaks Cree still. And Olive really embraced her position as an elder in the community and shared many, many teachings, and for me, very much was a guiding light on my journey as I've discovered on this red road of Indigenous spirituality, learning and growing about who I am as a Cree Métis woman. She was a wonderful bannock maker, stew maker, wonderful grandma, great grandma. Her time ended too quickly as she ended up passing from leukemia. But even till a week before she passed, she was teaching at the University of Calgary, teaching Cree class. And she's never given up that way. And I was I'm still very much have her as a role model for me to emulate as I become an elder myself and recognized in the community. So for me, it's very much about having the freedom and not being afraid to make choices. And you're right, I don't care what other people say. That's their issue, not mine. And I put it back that way. Also, I just want to share with Eric that as we get older, we think a lot about the hereafter. Just this morning, I went into the kitchen and I wondered, what the heck was I hereafter? So I just wanted to share that with you. It is a shared issue about having a little bit of a ragged memory. Thank you.
Thank you. I have, over the last number of years, been taken with the notion of elders, particularly among Indigenous people, and the respect and the elder, which is, I think, not part of the culture I kind of grew up in, the kind of thing that I would mention an interesting experience I had as a student, actually, at university, and a roommate and I moved into an apartment. And the apartment next to us, a one-bedroom apartment, was a woman who was 70, had retired, her husband had died, et cetera. And we both, and I wondered at the time about, who and what she would be like, was an absolutely wonderful woman. That was just terrific, and that we loved chatting with her. She loved having us over. It gave me such a different picture of what it means to be someone retired and older, and that she enjoyed every day, kind of thing, and we did too with her. It was quite wonderful. So it's interesting how people can have what kind of impact on us and how we view becoming older ourselves, and kind of thing. And that's somebody I'll never forget. But moving on to our next question. Aging is a stereotype, and a lot of people are discriminated based on age. And I'm wondering if you would like to talk about any experience you've had people seeing you in terms of age and measuring you that way. And if you haven't experienced ages, maybe whether you've observed the experience, but if you've had some personal experience, I think that's what we would want to have you share, if possible. And so, Cheryl, I think I'll start with you this time.
I have noticed it, and it's been rather subtle, and but it leaves me with the feeling of being dismissed, forgotten, that what I have to say is of no value, even within my own family. Oh yeah, that's because you're old. And so that I find that more annoying than really hurtful, because to be perfectly honest, I don't take that crap. And most people are about as happy as they intend to be, and I intend to be very happy. I agree with Sherry that it's about our attitudes. It's about that optimism. It is the things we look at change when we change the way we look at things. And I do. I view my life and my world and my surroundings and the people who cross my path in very different ways. But I also have um, the gift of kindness, and I firmly believe in sharing kindness. These last 2 years have shown me the value of kindness and consideration, and very much aligned with the seven sacred teachings of the Indigenous people. And those are courage, honesty, humility, love, respect, truth, and wisdom. And I try to live by those guides each and every day. And again, I wake up with gratitude in the morning. Thank you, Creator, for I'm up on the right side of the lawn. This is a good thing. It's easy to be grateful when you're slinking into bed. Thank you for my beautiful bed, Creator. But I've also recognized that as a survivor, I have a lot more empathy and compassion for others than I did when I was younger. So I also understand that the youth are always in a hurry, always in a hurry. And sometimes they don't have enough patience with elders. And we need to demand it. Just wait a second, buddy, and demand our time and demand to be heard. I still march for missing and murdered Indigenous women. I had a cousin who was 66, a grandmother, who was murdered 3 years ago. Still no one has been brought to justice. She was found 200 feet from the front door on my reserve. So I still fight the good fight, in spite of others who may dismiss me as an old person. But I'm also very grateful to be in an Indigenous community where I'm recognized as having value and having words to share and teachings to offer in a good way. So yeah, there is ageism out there, and in some ways, like Eric, I appreciate it. I like my uh, seniors meals when I go to Denny's. I like that stuff. I like the seniors rates at the pool that I go and swim at. I can afford to go there. So there are advantages to being an elder in our day and age. But yes, it is others who have the problem, not me so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing that with us. So I think I'll ask Eric if he wishes to tell us a little bit about discrimination, stereotyping, etc.
Yes, part of my choice of not living as a victim has been dealing in my life with anything that ends with ism. And ageism is no different than racism. And I've been subjected to both. And I agree, it's not my problem. And sometimes I confront whoever is expressing views that are discriminative as telling them you have a problem to solve. I don't have a problem with the color of my skin. I don't have a problem with being old or older, but I put the ball back in the field of whoever has that. I've been told about ageism or about being older than some people that I am too old, and the example that came to my mind was when I decided to stop being an employee of institutions or anybody else. Then I had to raise the question, well, I have to have some income. I was not even close to qualifying for being a senior according to the federal government. So I began developing a project of opening my own publishing company. And it was sad to hear that a big portion of the feedback that I got was, you're too old to start anything new. And choosing not to be a spectator, but rather to be in a protagonist role in my life, I thought, well, thank you for your feedback. I'm going ahead anyway. This is not going to change my plans. And the one thing that I found, and then I was able to share back to those people who thought I was too old, was that yes, I am older, but because I am older, I can embrace my fears in a more constructive way. When I was younger, fear paralyzed me from making clear decisions. But as I get older, I realize that I'm still afraid, but I embrace the fear, put it aside, and then and keep going on and do it anyway. So that some people would call wisdom, how we use what we know, how we use our experience. I just don't label it too much, and I just recognize, yes, I'm still afraid of starting a new project, of failing, of not making my targets, but I'm able to set it aside because of all that experience under my wing. So the other part where I experience ageism is I've been active all my life, physically, belonging to groups of hiking clubs, biking clubs, and when I was younger, even running clubs. Now I can't run anymore. My doctor threatened me that he would do whatever is in his power to stop me from running. I can't do it. My knees can't take it anymore. So he suggested do biking. So I joined clubs of biking, and it was very often when we went biking to the woods or to the hills. And I always, one of the safety decisions in the club is to pair you with somebody else in the team. And I was always paired with pregnant women and very old people. And I thought, wow, I think that there's an assumption here that we are, and even the women that were pregnant felt discriminated against because this is, what is the matter? I'm not as old as you are. I'm just pregnant and I can pedal hard. And so it was funny how we were uh, set aside as people with some limitations. And my first reaction was always, I will show them. Here I am. I'm tough, and I'm gonna show them. Well, the next day, my body would remind me that I can't show them as easily as 30 years ago. But regardless of that, I still kept participating and showing that I could keep my pace, and even if it was slower, yes. But I hope that all of them would be at the same pace as I do things when they are my age, and they began being more inclusive, I think, because of that attitude of, yeah, I may be a notch slower, but I'll do it. And I'll do the distance and I'll carry my own weight. And that really changes the conversation and the relationship with younger people. Um, in social occasions, I noticed that I was becoming invisible. Younger people talk to younger people, and I was relegated with the toddlers and with the little kids because I am a grandparent, and then I talk to little toddlers and put them on my knee and play with them, and I just really found that very bothersome. It was irksome to be not seen, not being able to carry a conversation, and again I had to pedal a bit harder and remind them that my opinions matter. just because I have a gray beard doesn't matter that my opinions have no less weight. Just because I'm a bit slower in some things, still my opinions matter. And as a matter of fact, matter more than some of their opinions. And I began looking for ways. And that's the advantage I see that we seniors have, that we have experience and know how to find ways where we can mentor to see that they cannot set us aside because we have something they don't have, experience. And that is as valuable as their strength and their speed. I prize speed and doing things really fast when I was young. Now I cannot do them at the same speed, but I can do them once instead of twice or three times because I have experience. I know which will work, which part will work, and which doesn't work, and I can anticipate better. And that, I use that edge to my advantage. No excuses. And I try to make my conversations meaningful to me. I don't let them choose my battles. I choose my battles, I choose my conversations, and then we can engage across generations in very, very meaningful conversations. Uh, Too weak, too old, or invisible, not my problem.
Good. Thank you, Eric, for the what you've had to say in both your experience, but also resilience and how you find ways to find good solutions that work. That so, Sherry.
Yeah, well, I first want to say I love to cycle too. And pre-pandemic, my husband and I were on a bike and barge tour down the Danube. And if you haven't done it, Eric, I highly recommend. Most of the people on the boat, because they were in shorts, had obvious surgery, knee surgery. So they couldn't run anymore, but we were cycling, and it was wonderful. 50K a day. It's wonderful. But back to the question.
Yes.
I started thinking about ageism as a nurse researcher, trying to find out how to improve practice with older people. And started to, as I was unpicking what were the challenges and the problems, I realized that ageism was underneath a lot of it. A lot of how, because nurses are in society and it's endemic in society. And not just nurses, healthcare professionals, everyone, greeting cards. I mean, we're engaging in a little bit of ageism, and we were talking about our not remembering things. I've had that problem my whole life. It's not an age-related problem. And so as I started to try to understand how to improve things, I thought, maybe if we just give students or nurses knowledge, but about older people, because that's not adequate in nursing education, and maybe that they would have better opinions of older people. But part of the dilemma is that they always see older people when they're sick and infirm. And so it's easy to believe that being old is sick and infirm. So this is sort of a long-winded way of saying I started to really start to delve into the literature about ageism. And for anyone listening, the World Health Organization has a wonderful document about it as it applies to younger and older people, 2021. If you want to understand, it's across the world, across all cultures, and it affects older people when we're purchasing, in the work environment, in greeting cards, in our family relationships. And sometimes it's disturbing, even thinking about it. And it starts even at primary school level, like the storybooks are about the little old lady or the little old man. It's so endemic in our society. And during the pandemic, my grandson, who was 5 at the time, and his mother came to live with us for 9 months. It was hard to have a young man and a big dog in a condominium when you're trying to isolate. So we're on the farm, so there was lots of space. And my grandson made this comment that, you know, old people can't do this, can't do that. And I thought, his mother and I looked at each other and went, where's he getting this idea? Like, he thinks grandpa can do anything, and he pretty much can. And grandma's working and like active, and they're riding their bikes, and like, where's he getting this idea? And we started to go backwards, and it's just so endemic in our society. Even though he has good role models, this is a perception that he had. And so as I've been trying to unpick this and be aware of it, I start to become aware of it everywhere, which is, you know, my husband no longer looks at funny jokes about aging on the internet because they're ageist. Why would we laugh at a joke about getting older? You know, yes, there are age-related changes, but we cope and we adapt and we find ways to do what we want to do, and we prioritize. So I started to look in my workplace, and I realized, you know, you got to quit dyeing your hair. You got to walk the talk. So I quit dyeing my hair, and it was like I was invisible. And even the way work is assigned, you know, is unmeaningfully, you know, I'm not criticizing anybody, unintentionally ageist. So I actually brought this up with my dean, and that was really challenging. And I said, I'm not asking to change anything. I'm just trying to open the conversation and our thinking about what we do. Because, you know, there are lots of isms out there that is terrible, but ageism is one that we're all a club we're all going to belong to. And yet it's the one that isn't as recognized, that we don't even acknowledge that it exists. And how can we do anything about it if we don't even acknowledge that it's so prevalent? There's actually research that shows that younger people who have negative images, more negative perceptions about older people actually end up internalizing them and becoming, you know, having more negative consequences. And negative consequences could include, you know, bad mental health, not going to the doctor because you hurt, thinking you don't need to exercise, all these kinds of things that could happen. So as I'm teaching the students in my classes, I'm saying, you know, you need to be aware of ageism for your own health. And we want to age because the opposite of aging is death.
Exactly.
So we need to applaud aging. And I think we need to find some way for those of us who are elders, and I love the Indigenous ways of acknowledging elders. We need to find a way of finding that place for elders in our society so that other generations can benefit from our knowledge, our wisdom, and we can benefit from their enthusiasm and their vitality that they bring. And so I think we have to stop having these intergenerational wars and realize that, you know, when we work together, the world is a better place.
Thank you, all three. Excuse me, all three of you. We have one last question, and I'm going to ask that you take a minute and a half for each one. We're starting to run with time a little bit, so fairly quickly. And it is a kind of direction you've all talked about, and moving in a positive direction. So the one I ask is what can you say about some example of a book, a film, a work of art, or something else that's inspired you that you think has a positive view of aging? So maybe a book or a play or music or something like that. And fairly short, you can say that to us. Is that so? I think, Eric, I'll start with you.
Very good. A film comes to my mind called Bucket List. Jack Nicholson and I forgot the name of the other man.
Oh yeah,
Both lovely actors, and I think that I need more than a bucket for my list. I need a bathtub. I have a long list of things to do as I'm aging. But among that list, I can think of a couple of things. One of them is I have decided to learn to start playing piano, and I know zero. And about 5 years ago, I decided to start painting, and I had never painted anything in my life. But over time, with good teacher, I've been learning to paint, and I'm making portraits of my grandchildren, and they love it. I love it. It's a good expression of something new. So learning new skills and finding new like-minded friends. Isolation is, we create isolation. It doesn't happen to us. So the way I undo isolation in my life is creating new friends. And my goal is to have 2 or 3 new friends every year, long-time friends. And so far it's working. I've met wonderful people that are becoming my friends. And the last thing I wanted to mention quickly is that if I want to show the younger generation how to age in a fulfilling way, so they are not that using the ageism, then I can become a mentor to them, show them how I'm aging.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Because of the pandemic, I've been kind of hooked on my TV, and I had watched a movie called Palms with Diane Keaton. And it looks at that very thing that she has to go and live in an elder's residence, and she fights to become a cheerleader, something she always wanted to do in her life. So I really like that. I also like the fact that TV is showing elders in a good way. I mean, right from
Mm.
Golden Girls, those feisty women, to Grace and Frankie. I love Grace and Frankie because I love Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. And for me, that's inspirational to me. And it's their attitude of, oh, yes, I can. Don't tell me what to do. For me, my response is often, I'm sorry you choose to feel that way. And I just put their stuff right back to them. There you go. I'm sorry you choose to feel that way. I do notice that gravity's not our friend, and it's good to be conscious of where we put each step. And the same with our words. We need to be careful where our words go, and to err on the side of conscious kindness and an appreciation, living in gratitude. For me, that really makes a difference because that's living in joy by that choice. And that's why I'm very encouraged. But when I see elderly, the elders within our communities, talking, sharing, gifting, as we say, their knowledge to the younger generation. And in many cases, the information we give is surprisingly interesting and accurate and kind of fun. So it very much, we have a lot to offer the next generation, and we're boomers here. We're in the majority, guys. We're in the majority. So I'm very much proactive in activity, and I get to do now what I want to do. So I like this. This is kind of fun.
Thank you. Thank you. And Sherry?
Yeah, there's a TED talk. It's about 20 minutes, and if you Google it, it's How to Live to Be 100. It's 20 minutes long, and it's actually the research from the 5 hotspots around the world of people who live long. And it kind of, it's very positive, and it's very simple things. that are easy to incorporate in your life. And I also suggest, like, I have goals for when I retire, which is why I'm so excited about it going to happen, about the things I'm going to do and the new things I'm going to learn, like learn how to quilt, or you know, some things that I don't have time to do when I'm working. And so I would consider, you know, embracing that growing older, and what are the things that you don't have time to do now that you'd like to learn when you can.
Mhm. Mhm.
Thank you very much. I will just we have a few seconds left to say that one of the things that has been significant for me for a long time, and I read this quite some time ago, was a novel that's called Love in the Time of Cholera.
Oh
By
yeah.
a South American writer whose name escapes me at the moment, kind of in that too. But I just found that a wonderful, wonderful story of, and it was so invigorating, the lives and how these two people put all that together as quite elderly individuals in the book.
Yeah.
So that would
It's,
be one.
Garcia, it's Garcia Marquez.
Thank you, Annette.
Yeah.
I knew you would know, but I was embarrassed to ask you to do that. Yeah, because I'll never forget it. It was that. And with that, I think that express my appreciation for the comments that all of you made. And we'll hope that those who were listening had a good lunch and learned at the same time a bit, kind of thing. And that, since that was our job. Which means that we can all go to lunch in a few more minutes, the kind of thing that ourselves and ruminate as to how well things went. And with that, I will turn this back to Sheila McKay, who is our host for today. So Sheila.
Thank you, Michael. A big thank you to Cheryl and Sherry and Eric, and of course, Michael. We are definitely the generation of volunteers. I just have to ask if there's anyone who can teach a left-handed person to knit. Thank you to everyone who was on Zoom, and we appreciate the time that you took to watch our panel discussion.